My name is Marcus. I was 52 years old when I died on the floor of a hardware store on a Saturday morning. I want to be very precise about that detail because it matters. I wasn't climbing Everest, and I wasn't fighting a war. I was buying a specific type of sanding grit for a deck project I'd been putting off for 3 years. I was a man of routine, a man who valued logic, tangible results, and the solid weight of things you can hold in your hands. I didn't have time for mysteries. I had a mortgage, 2 grown children who still needed money, and a high blood pressure prescription I frequently forgot to refill. That morning was aggressively ordinary. I remember the smell of sawdust and stale coffee in the aisle. I was annoyed because they didn't have the exact brand of stain I wanted. My mind was running a constant, low-level commentary of complaints. The line was too long, the music was too loud, my lower back was throbbing. This was my state of being, a low-grade, constant irritation with life. I was alive, but I wasn't really living. I was managing. Then the world tilted. It wasn't painful at first. It felt like someone had reached inside my chest and turned a heavy iron valve, shutting off the flow of everything. The bag of sanding discs dropped from my hand. I heard it hit the concrete floor, a dry, slapping sound. I tried to apologize to the woman standing next to me, but my tongue felt like it had swollen to the size of a fist. My knees just gave up. I hit the ground hard. I remember seeing the scuffed toe of my own sneaker and a discarded receipt lying in the dust under the shelf. That was my entire view. The fluorescent lights above flickered, buzzing like angry insects. Panic should have set in, but there was no room for it. My chest felt like it was being crushed by a hydraulic press. I could hear voices, but they sounded like they were coming from underwater. "Sir, sir, are you okay?" someone shouted. The urgency in their voice felt ridiculous to me. Why were they yelling? I just needed to catch my breath. Then the darkness came. It wasn't sleep. It was a complete system failure. The pain in my chest spiked, a white-hot lance of agony, and then, just as quickly, it vanished. Snap! I was standing up. I looked down, confused, because I hadn't felt my legs move. But there I was, standing in the aisle. The pain was gone. The buzzing of the lights was gone. The heaviness of my 52-year-old body, the stiffness in the joints, the weight of the breakfast I'd eaten, it had all evaporated. I felt light. Incredibly, impossibly light. I looked down at the floor, expecting to see the spilled sanding discs. Instead, I saw a man lying there. He was wearing my plaid shirt. He had my thinning grey hair. He looked pathetic, crumpled up against the shelving unit, his face turning a color that shouldn't exist on a human being. A woman in a blue vest was kneeling over him, shouting for someone to call 911. It took me a full 10 seconds to realize that the man on the floor was me. I wasn't scared. That's the first thing people struggle to believe. I wasn't terrified of seeing my own corpse. I was curious. I felt a strange clinical detachment, like I was watching a scene from a movie I had already seen. Poor guy, I thought. He looked so tired. And then the scene began to fade. The hardware store didn't go dark. It became transparent. The walls, the shelves, the frantic people, they all started to lose their solidity. They became like smoke drifting apart. The reality I had built my entire life on, the physical world of wood and stone and metal, was revealing itself to be nothing more than a thin veil. I began to rise. I didn't fly. I was simply lifted by a current I couldn't feel. I passed through the ceiling, through the roof, and into a space that was not the sky. The blue atmosphere of Earth was gone. I was in a place of deep, velvety indigo, surrounded by a silence so profound it felt like a physical embrace. This was the beginning of my near-death experience, though at the time I didn't have the words for it. I only knew that I was more awake than I had ever been in the hardware store. I was pure consciousness, stripped of the biology that had limited me for half a century, and I wasn't alone. The sensation of movement stopped, but I wasn't standing on anything. I was simply existing in this vast indigo quiet. There was no temperature here, no cold, no heat. just a perfect equilibrium. Then the light appeared. It didn't come from a sun or a bulb. It came from everywhere at once, as if the darkness itself had decided to ignite. It was golden, white, and terrified me for a fraction of a second, not because it was threatening, but because it was so intense I thought it would annihilate me. I braced myself for impact, but the impact never came. Instead of burning me, the light washed through me. It knew me. That is the hardest part to put into English. We are used to hiding. We hide our thoughts from our spouses, our fears from our children, and our true selves from the world. We wear masks. But in that light, I had no mask. Every thought I had ever had, every petty jealousy, every secret kindness, every moment of shame, it was all exposed. And the shock was this: I wasn't judged. I felt a presence emerge from the light. It wasn't a man with a beard or a winged angel. It was a focal point of intelligence and love that felt ancient. It communicated without words. It spoke directly into my mind, a telepathic transfer of pure meaning. "Welcome, Marcus. Look at what you have built." I was suddenly surrounded by a panoramic view of my life. But it wasn't a movie screen. I was reliving it. I was back in my kitchen, arguing with my wife about money. I felt my own frustration, my own self-righteousness. But then the perspective shifted. I suddenly felt her fear. I felt her shrinking away from my anger. I felt the knot in her stomach that I had caused. Then the scene changed. I was 6 years old, sharing a sandwich with a stray dog. I felt the dog's gratitude, a simple, pure wave of warmth. I realized that the life review wasn't about a list of sins. It was about connection. I saw that every single interaction I had ever had left a ripple. I saw the times I was dismissive to a cashier and I felt their sudden drop in self-worth. I saw the times I listened to my daughter, really listened, and I felt her spirit expand. I turned to the presence, feeling a heavy weight of regret. I wasted so much time, I thought. I worried about things that didn't matter. I was asleep. The presence didn't scold me. It held me in a vibration of compassion that brought me to my knees. Metaphorically speaking, it showed me that my life wasn't a failure, but a classroom. However, there was a heaviness to the lesson. The environment shifted again. The personal review ended, and I was taken higher or deeper into the reality. The light became clearer, sharper. I felt like I was being prepared for something. The comfort of the emotional healing faded, replaced by a stern, absolute clarity. The presence showed me the earth. I saw the planet not as a globe of rock and water, but as a web of energy. I saw billions of sparks, human souls moving across the surface. But the web was tangled. It was dark and chaotic. "Why is it like this?" I asked. "Why is there so much pain?" The answer I received is the reason I am speaking to you now. It wasn't a comforting platitude. It wasn't, "Everything happens for a reason." It was a stark, brutal truth about the human condition that I didn't want to hear. I wanted to be told that we are victims of a cruel world. I wanted to be told that the devil makes us do it, or that bad luck rules our fate. But the presence showed me the root. It showed me the source of the noise. It wasn't external. It was us. "You are afraid of your own silence," the presence communicated. I looked closer at the web of humanity. I saw people running, not physically running, but internally sprinting, running to their phones, running to work, running to alcohol, running to arguments, running to the news. "Why?" I asked. "What are they running from?" "They are running from the connection," the voice said, "because to connect is to take responsibility." I stood there, suspended in eternity, and the realization hit me like a physical blow. We aren't seeking God, we are hiding from Him. We fill our lives with noise because if we were truly quiet, we would have to face the magnitude of who we really are and the responsibility that comes with that power. I wanted to look away, but I couldn't. If this story is resonating with you, or if you've ever felt that same urge to run from the silence, I invite you to just take a breath and stay with me. What came next changed everything I thought I knew about being human. The revelation deepened. The presence stripped away the last layers of my defense mechanisms. I was shown a concept that is difficult to articulate, but I will try. I was shown that the greatest lie we tell ourselves on earth is that we are separate. I saw that every thought I had, even the ones I thought were private, was a transmission. You think your mind is a fortress, the presence explained, not with words, but by showing me the energy flow. But your mind is a broadcasting station. I saw the truth nobody wants to hear. It is this: we are not waiting for a savior to fix the world. We are the architects of the chaos, and we maintain it because it is safer than the light. It sounds backwards, doesn't it? We say we want peace. We say we want love. But the presence showed me that peace is terrifying to the ego. In peace, the ego dissolves. In drama, in conflict, in stress, the ego feels important. It feels alive. I saw that I had spent 52 years addicted to my own stress. I loved the struggle of the mortgage, the struggle of the difficult client, the struggle of the traffic. I complained about it, but I clung to it because without it, I didn't know who Marcus was. You are addicted to your own suffering, the presence revealed, because suffering gives you an identity. Joy requires you to surrender that identity. This hit me harder than the physical death. I realized that my entire personality was built around my problems. If you took away my problems, I was empty. And that emptiness was what I was running from. What do I do? I asked, feeling a desperate need to fix it. How do I tell them? How do I stop? You cannot force them to stop, the presence said. You can only stop running yourself. You must go back and be the silence in the noise. Go back? The panic returned instantly. No, I said, no, I can't go back there. I looked down at the chaotic web of earth. It looked heavy. It looked like a swamp of dense, sticky tar. Why would I want to leave this place of absolute clarity, of unconditional love, to go back to a body that hurts, to a world that is obsessed with nonsense? I've finished, I pleaded. I learned the lesson. I see it now. Let me stay. The presence didn't argue. It simply showed me my children. I saw my son sitting in a waiting room, his head in his hands. I saw the potential futures branching out from him. If I didn't return, a darkness would settle over him that might take decades to lift. If I did return, I could offer him a different frequency, not by preaching to him, but simply by being different. You have work to do, Marcus, the voice said. Not the work of an architect of buildings, the work of an architect of peace. I tried to resist. I tried to anchor myself in the light. I felt like a child clinging to a parent's leg, refusing to go to school. It's too hard, I cried out. It's too heavy down there. Nobody listens. They will listen to your life, not your words, the presence replied. And then, without a countdown, without a warning, the connection was severed. I was pushed. It felt like being sucked down a drain. A violent, swirling descent from the expansive, infinite awareness back into the tiny, cramped vessel of biological matter. The return was brutal. There was no gentle waking up. It was a slam. Imagine falling from a 10-story building and hitting the pavement. That was the sensation of re-entering my body. The first thing I felt was weight, unbearable, crushing gravity. My arms felt like lead bars. My chest felt like it was wrapped in barbed wire. Then came the noise, the beeping of monitors, the squeak of rubber shoes, the shouting of voices. It was an assault on my senses. "We've got a rhythm," someone yelled. I gasped, a ragged, tearing intake of air that burned my throat. My eyes flew open, but everything was blurry and too bright. I tried to lift my head, but I couldn't. I was strapped down, tubes down my throat, needles in my arms. I was back in the machine. I wanted to weep, not out of gratitude for being alive, but out of grief for what I had lost. I'd been expelled from Eden and thrown back into the mud. Recovery was slow. Physically, my heart healed. The doctors called it a miraculous recovery, considering how long I had been down. They talked about stents and diet changes and medication. They patted me on the back and told me I was lucky. Lucky. I didn't feel lucky. I felt like a stranger in a foreign land. When I went home, everything looked different. I looked at my television, and I saw a box emitting anxiety. I looked at the newspaper, and I saw a script designed to keep us afraid. I went to the grocery store, the same one where I had died, and I didn't see annoying shoppers anymore. I saw souls desperately trying to fill a void with cereal and detergent. It has been 4 years since that day. I am not the same Marcus. I quit my job at the firm. I couldn't sit in meetings anymore and argue about budgets that didn't matter. I work with wood now, building simple furniture. I make less money, much less, but I'm not running anymore. The truth I brought back is hard for people to hear. When I tell friends that their stress is a choice, they get angry. When I tell them that they are terrified of their own power, they laugh. They want to hear that the afterlife is just clouds and harps. They don't want to hear that the afterlife is a mirror that shows you exactly who you are, and that the work begins here, right now. We are here to learn how to love in a place that makes it difficult to love. That is the test. We are here to hold the light in a world that is addicted to the dark. I'm not afraid of dying anymore. I know where I am going, but more importantly, I am not afraid of living. I take moments every day to just stop, to be silent, to disconnect from the broadcasting station of fear and tune back into that indigo quiet. Because I know that underneath the noise, underneath the traffic and the politics and the pain, everything is okay. It is all just a school, and we are all just walking each other home.